life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. The function of prayer is not to influence God, but rather to change the nature of the one who prays. People demand freedom of speech as a compensation for the freedom of thought which they seldom use. Anxiety is the dizziness of freedom. People understand me so poorly that they don't even understand my complaint about them not understanding me. Life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced. There are two ways to be fooled. One is to believe what isn't true, the other is to refuse to believe what is true. The most common form of despair is not being who you are. It is perfectly true, as philosophers say, that life must be understood backwards. But they forget the other proposition, that it must be lived forwards. What labels me, negates me. The most painful state of being is remembering the future, particularly the one you'll never have. What if everything in the world were a misunderstanding? What if laughter were really tears? To dare is to lose one's footing momentarily. Not to dare is to lose oneself. My melancholy is the most faithful sweetheart I have had. God creates out of nothing. Wonderful, you say. Yes, to be sure, but he does what is still more wonderful, he makes saints out of sinners. The present state of the world and the whole of life is diseased. If I were a doctor and were asked for my advice, I should reply, create silence. Now, with God's help, I shall become myself. There is nothing with which every man is so afraid as getting to know how enormously much he is capable of doing and becoming. If anyone on the verge of action should judge himself according to the outcome, he would never begin. It is impossible to exist without passion. Every mental act is composed of doubt and belief, but it is belief that is the positive, it is belief that sustains thought and holds the world together. Take away paradox from the thinker and you have a professor. Once you are born in this world, you're old enough to die. To venture causes anxiety, but not to venture is to lose oneself. And to venture in the highest is precisely to be conscious of oneself. To cheat oneself out of love is the most terrible deception. It is an eternal loss for which there is no reparation, either in time or in eternity. The task must be made difficult, for only the difficult inspires the noble-hearted. Face the facts of being what you are, for that is what changes what you are. Leap of faith, yes, but only after reflection. The highest and most beautiful things in life are not to be heard about, nor read about, nor seen, but, if one will, are to be lived. Therefore do not deceive yourself. Of all deceivers fear most yourself. It is very important in life to know when your cue comes. Once you label me, you negate me. It is the duty of the human understanding to understand that there are things which it cannot understand. The tyrant dies and his rule is over, the martyr dies and his rule begins. My sorrow is my castle. What looks like politics and imagines itself to be political will one day unmask itself as a religious movement. If you want to be loathsome to God, just run with the herd. My standpoint is armed neutrality. Happiness is the greatest hiding place for despair. Many of us pursue pleasure with such breathless haste that we hurry past it. The only intelligent tactical response to life's horror is to laugh defiantly at it. I stick my finger into existence and it smells of nothing. Hope is a passion for the possible. It belongs to the imperfection of everything human that man can only attain his desire by passing through its opposite. The self-assured believer is a greater sinner in the eyes of God than the troubled disbeliever. It is so hard to believe because it is so hard to obey. A no does not hide anything, but a yes very easily becomes a deception. Boredom is the root of all evil, the despairing refusal to be oneself. I feel as if I were a piece in a game of chess, when my opponent says of it, that piece cannot be moved. On the secretly blushing cheek is reflected the glow of the heart. How absurd men are! They never use the liberties they have, they demand those they do not have. They have freedom of thought, they demand freedom of speech. Why bother remembering a past that cannot be made into a present?